Rintaro's buddy tries to look on the bright side, telling him it's just one rejection and to not let it get to him. But Ajo Rintaro is a total wreck, looking like some depressed cartoon character while his friend wonders what kind of face he's even making. His friend just laughs it off, saying Rintaro managed to ruin every single memory they shared on their last day together. It's not just any rejection, though. Rintaro just hit a legendary milestone of being shot down 100 times. His friend starts shaking him, jokingly dubbing him the Knight of Passion for having the nerves of steel to keep trying after 99 failures. Rintaro remembers it all started early. His very first rejection was when he was only 8 months old. He's completely desperate, shouting about how much he just wants a girlfriend to hold hands and have tickle fights with. Honestly, even his friend is confused, admitting that Rintaro is actually popular, athletic, and a genuinely nice guy. The praise is so high that Rintaro starts blushing, asking if his friend is the one who actually has a crush on him. His friend shuts that down fast, wishing him luck in high school, but predicting that his rejection streak is only going to get longer. Determined to change his luck, Rintaro heads to a local shrine to beg any god or wizard listening for a bit of help. He's practically in tears as he prays for just one girlfriend and a perfect high school life. But then a voice tells him not to worry. A massive, realistic face suddenly pops up right from the slats of the donation box. Rintaro absolutely loses it, screaming at the top of his lungs, thinking he's caught some kind of bizarre donation thief. The face stares him down, calmly explaining that he's actually the very god of this shrine. The shrine god phases right through the wood, floating in air to prove he's the real deal and not just a monster. He tells Rintaro to be at peace, because it's finally written in the stars that he's going to meet his destined soulmate. Rintaro gets a bit confused by the word date, asking if the guy is some kind of ghoul who eats the juicy red fruit. The shrine god clarifies that a soulmate is the one person specifically chosen for you at the moment of your birth. He explains that when two soulmates meet, a sudden shock runs through their bodies, resulting in love at first sight. But there's a catch. While women know the moment it happens, men usually only realize over time. Rintaro starts repeating everything he hears, which really annoys the god, who tells him to stop wasting panels with all the exposition. Rintaro asks if everyone gets one, and the god explains that some people are single forever while others are just lucky. Knowing he's finally going to fall deeply in love in high school, Rintaro can't help but feel like all his suffering was worth it. But then the god drops a bombshell. Rintaro isn't meeting just one girl, he's going to meet a grand total of 100. Rintaro is stunned, thinking it sounds way too good to be true, but the god insists that a divine being wouldn't lie to him. He's still a bit skeptical, wondering if he should just burn his shrine down if this ends up being a prank. Spring finally arrives, and Rintaro stands at the gates of his new high school, ready for the wait to be over. As he heads to orientation, he even breaks the fourth wall, telling the readers they probably can't relate to his struggles. He's so lost in thought that he rounds the corner and slams straight into someone else. Two girls are knocked to the floor, Hanazono Hikari and Inda Karain, both looking just as startled as he is. As their eyes meet, a massive bolt of lightning practically fries all three of them in a moment of pure love shock. Rintaro stands there frozen, feeling a strange sensation through his whole body as he wonders if these are actually the ones. The girls are just as dazed, and Rintaro tries to keep his cool so they don't think he's some kind of weirdo for staring. He quickly snaps out of it and reaches out a hand, asking if the two of them are alright. Hikari immediately turns on the charm, acting all delicate and asking if he'd be kind enough to help her to the nurse's office. Karain is just as flustered, her face turning bright red as Rintaro apologizes over and over for the accident. He gets so overwhelmed by the fact that he's already hurt his precious soulmates that he starts sobbing right then and there. Hikari is completely moved, thinking he must be a saint to feel this much remorse over a little tripped leg. Karain tries to keep her distance, acting all tough and awkward while she shuffles away from the sudden emotional outburst. She blushes furiously, snapping that she definitely doesn't need to lean on his shoulder or anything. Karain suddenly slaps his hand away, leaving everyone shocked, while Rintaro just lets out a frustrated scream at the ceiling. Rintaro is having a total meltdown, wondering if he's some kind of monster that brings pain to everyone he touches. He panics, asking the girls if they're even able to stand after that collision. Hikari and Karain are still on the ground, groaning in pain as they try to pick themselves up. Karain snaps at him to stop just standing there and actually help him out. Before he knows it, the girls have him in a double support hold, but Rintaro's the one looking like he's being carried away. He's completely baffled as to why the roles are reversed right now. Hikari leans in close, mentioning how unstable things might get with all three of them clumped together like this. Karain tries to keep her balance, while Rintaro starts to realize they're both pulling him in different directions. The girls suddenly latch onto him with everything they've got, leaving Rintaro completely frozen in shock. He can't even process if this is actually real life or some kind of wild dream. He feels like the luckiest telephone pole in the universe as they cling to him like cicadas on a tree. For some reason, the whole experience just feels absolutely amazing to him. Rintaro starts getting flustered, feeling like he's about to lose his mind. Or worse, if things keep going at this rate. Hikari softly asks if they can just head to the nurse's office together. They finally get around to introductions, with Rintaro realizing they're all first years in Class 4. Hikari and Karain give their names, and Rintaro is stunned to find out they're all in the exact same class. As they walk, Hikari brings up a local legend about the school's clovers, asking if he's heard the story before. Karain seems a bit skeptical, but she's clearly listening in. Legend says there's a field of pink clovers out back, and finding a 4-leaf one guarantees a successful confession. Karain calls it a fairy tale for kids, but she admits the never-failed part is a little spooky. The first day finally wraps up, and the girls dash off to handle some errands, leaving Rintaro standing there alone. He's left wondering what happened to those hurt legs they were complaining about earlier. For hours fly by as Rintaro helps a teacher find lost contact lenses, but his mind is still on those two girls. He heads home, hoping he'll get another chance to see them the next day. On his way out, he's shocked to see both Hikari and Karain still on the school grounds, crawling around on their hands and knees. It's been hours, and they're still searching for something in the grass. He realizes they must be hunting for those legendary clovers to give to him. Rintaro is genuinely touched, wondering who would actually go to such lengths for a guy like him. He watches them from a distance, seeing just how hard they're trying despite how exhausted they look. He knows he can't just stand there and watch them with themselves out like this. He catches Karain looking especially frustrated, muttering about how the field might have been picked clean already. He decides he has to step in and help him somehow. Rintaro walks up to them, asking if they're having trouble finding that elusive 4-leaf clover. Karain jumps nearly out of her skin when she hears his voice behind her. She immediately switches in a full defensive mode, shouting that she definitely isn't looking for some stupid clover. She claims she just suddenly felt the urge to go and was looking for a perfect spot to do her business. Rintaro just stares at her, knowing she's just digging a deeper hole for herself with that excuse. He notices Hikari is nowhere to be seen and wonders if she already headed home. He pulls a drink out of his bag and offers it to her, noting that she looks really tired from all that searching. Karain looks at him in confusion, not sure how to react to his kindness. She gets suspicious, asking what he's trying to get at by giving her a drink out of the blue. Rintaro calmly tells her that if she doesn't want it, she doesn't have to take it. Karain snatches the can right out his hand before he can pull it back. She grumbles about it being gross, but says she'll drink it anyway just so it doesn't go to waste. Rintaro smiles, telling her it's getting pretty late, and suggests they both start heading home. Karain just huffs, telling him she doesn't need him to tell her what to do. As he starts to walk away, Karain suddenly pauses, looking like she has something more on her mind. Rintaro waits, wondering what's coming next. She turns back with a heavy blush, quietly thanking him for the drink while looking down at the can. Her tough exterior is finally starting to crack just a little bit. Rintaro is absolutely floored by how cute she is, finally realizing that she's just a giant Sundra. The truth hits him like a ton of bricks as he stares at her in shock. Karain immediately regrets being so honest and trots off as fast as she can. Rintaro is left standing there, still trying to process which version of her is the real one. He turns around and finds Hikari is still there too, looking a bit surprised to see him. He mentions how long they've been looking for clovers and offers her a drink as well. Hikari looks at him with a sparkle in her eye, thanking him for being so kind and thoughtful. She takes the can, but her brain is already working on a little scheme of her own. She puts on a shy act, claiming she always struggles to finish a whole can by herself. In her head, she's celebrating the perfect setup for a sneaky, indirect kiss. She calculates the math, asking him if he'd mind having just half of it to help her out. Rintaro is left wondering if 15 milliliters is really that big of a deal for her. He looks at the can, then back at her, finally realizing what's actually happening. His face goes pale as the realization of an indirect kiss hits him. Both of them are now blushing like crazy, with their hearts racing at the thought of sharing a drink. Rintaro feels the pressure mounting as he prepares to take a sip. Hikari is practically vibrating with excitement, her heart thumping as she watches him. The tension in the air is so thick you could cut it with a knife. In her extreme nervousness, Hikari ends up fumbling the can, and juice starts splashing everywhere. She lets out a panicked scream as the perfect scheme goes south. She falls to her knees in despair, apologizing profusely for the mess. Rintaro looks at her in shock, jokingly asking if she was really that desperate for a drink. He notices some of the juice got on her skirt and immediately jumps into action to help. He pulls out a handkerchief and tells her to use it before the juice can set in. He's genuinely worried about the stain, telling her not to let it ruin her clothes. Hikari looks up at him, completely stunned by how caring and attentive he is. She reaches out to take the handkerchief from him, her fingers brushing against his hand. The simple gesture feels way more intimate than either of them expected. They end up holding hands for a brief moment, the world around them seemingly fading away. Rintaro looks down at her, feeling a new kind of connection forming. He can't help but notice just how soft her hands are as he looks at her in a daze. Hikari looks down, her face turning a deep shade of red as she realizes he's still holding on. She quietly whispers his name, her voice barely audible over the sound of her own racing heart. The day is ending on a much more intense note than it started. Hikari doesn't hold back any longer, grabbing Rintaro's hand and pouring her heart out with a shout. She begs him to go out with her, her eyes shimmering with desperate hope. Rintaro is left completely speechless, his brain struggling to process the sudden confession. He can barely believe that a girl is actually asking him out like this. Hikari explains that she fell for him the moment they first met and didn't want to risk losing him. She knows that if she hesitates now, she'll regret it for the rest of her life. Tears of pure joy streamed down Rintaro's face as the reality of the situation finally sinks in. After a lifetime of rejection, someone finally wants to be with him. Their moment is suddenly interrupted by a loud clatter as Karain accidentally drops a mountain of soda cans. She stands there frozen in shock, her face turning a bright shade of crimson. Rintaro and Hikari turn to see Karain standing over the spilled drinks, looking absolutely mortified. Rintaro is baffled as to why she's there with so many cans in the first place. Karain tries to play it off with her usual tough attitude, claiming she only bought them because she didn't know his preference. Her Tsundra act is at an all-time high as she struggles to find the right words. She immediately snaps at Hikari, accusing her of trying to steal a march on her while she was busy. Hikari is stunned to realize that Karain has been harboring the same feelings for Rintaro all along. Karain tries to maintain her distance, shouting that she definitely doesn't like him or anything like that. Rintaro can only watch in confusion as she goes through a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Then, in a classic roundabout way, she suggests that she might be willing to go out with him if he's really that desperate. Rintaro is starting to realize just how complicated this situation is becoming. Finally dropping the act, Karain clutches her sweater and confesses her feelings, her face glowing with a deep blush. She admits that she likes him too and wants to give a relationship a try. Rintaro finds himself caught in the middle of two simultaneous confessions, his mind racing as he looks from one girl to the other. The atmosphere becomes incredibly tense, the sound of their rapidly beating hearts filling the air. Both girls are waiting with bated breath for his response. Hikari and Karain both look up at him, their expressions filled with a mix of nervousness and intense expectation. They both call out his name, ready for the moment of truth. They aren't going to let him off easy, demanding that he makes a choice right then and there. They both want to know which one of them he's going to pick. Rintaro is completely paralyzed by the pressure, unable to find the words to respond to either of them. He feels like his head is about to explode from the sheer weight of the decision. The scene abruptly shifts, leaving the outcome of the confrontation a mystery for the time being. It's a classic cliffhanger that leaves everyone hanging. Later that evening, Rintaro walks home alone, letting out a long, heavy sigh of relief. He somehow managed to convince the girls to give him until the next day to make his final decision. Safely back in his room, Rintaro rolls around on his bed, grappling with the incredible dilemma he's facing. He never thought he'd see the day where he'd have to choose between two amazing girls. Hours pass by, and the stress of the choice is starting to take a visible toll on him. He's sweating buckets, his mind trapped in a loop of indecision as he realizes he simply can't choose. He tries to imagine a future with either of them, but both scenarios seem equally perfect in their own way. He's completely captivated by the idea of being with either Hikari or Karain. He sits at his desk, clutching his head in frustration as he wonders what he's supposed to do. He starts to suspect that this impossible choice is linked to the soulmate revelation from earlier. Suddenly, a blinding light fills the room, signaling the arrival of a divine visitor. The shrine god has returned to offer some much-needed guidance. The deity explains that since both girls are soulmates, they're both technically the most perfect romantic matches he could ever find. Rintaro asks how people are supposed to handle meeting two soulmates at the same time. He explains that under normal circumstances, a person is only ever supposed to have one single soulmate in their entire lifetime. He then drops a bombshell, confessing that he made a massive blunder on the day Rintaro was born. It turns out he accidentally added 2 extra zeros to Rintaro's total soulmate count. Rintaro is absolutely floored by the revelation of this cosmic error. Meanwhile, the shrine god casually mentions he was distracted by a rerun of Castle in the Sky while he was working. Rintaro collapses to the floor, mourning the chaotic state of his life thanks to a divine mistake. The shrine god warns him that things are about to get even more complicated. The deity goes on to explain the absolute nature of soulmates. Once two people meet, they're destined to be together and share a life of mutual love. He emphasizes how rare and precious a soulmate connection is, being worth a lifetime's worth of good fortune. However, he warns that turning your back on such a gift comes with a heavy price. He bluntly states that if Rintaro doesn't choose to be with his soulmate, they will meet a tragic and untimely end. Rintaro is horrified, realizing that his choice is now a matter of life and death. He screams out in frustration, feeling completely trapped by the impossible situation he's been thrust into. He has no idea how he's supposed to navigate this divine mess. The next morning at school, Rintaro leans against the wall, feeling the full weight of the world on his shoulders. He's terrified that whoever he rejects is destined to die because of him. Desperate for a solution, a reckless and dangerous idea begins to take root in his mind. He wonders if he could somehow manage to date both girls at the same time without them knowing. He tries to convince himself that it's the only way to save them both from their grim fate. He thinks he can keep the two relationships a complete secret and prevent anyone from getting hurt. He works himself up into a determined frenzy, convinced that he can pull off the ultimate balancing act. He's willing to do whatever it takes to protect the girls he's come to care about. The time for his decision finally arrives, and Rintaro heads to the meeting spot behind the school. Both Hikari and Karain are already there waiting for him, the air thick with anticipation. Rintaro shows up looking completely exhausted and bedraggled, his appearance a clear reflection of the sleepless night he's had. Karain is immediately worried, asking him what on earth happened. Hikari gets straight to the point, asking him if he's finally reached a conclusion about which one of them he wants to be with. Rintaro takes a deep breath, his expression hardening with resolve. The girls watch in surprise as Rintaro suddenly drops into a formal, deep bow before them. They have no idea what kind of answer he's about to give. With all the courage he can muster, Rintaro shouts out his outrageous proposal to both of them at once. He asks if they would both be willing to be his girlfriends, leaving them completely stunned. Hikari and Karain are left frozen in place, their minds completely blank as they try to process Rintaro's unthinkable request. The silence between them is deafening after his sudden outburst. A faint, bewildered sound escapes their lips as the sheer absurdity of the situation begins to sink in. They can hardly believe their ears, looking at him as if he's grown a second head. Karain is the first to snap, her shock turning into explosive anger as she screams at him for even suggesting something so insane. She can't wrap her head around the idea of him wanting to date them both at the same time. Rintaro remains in his deep bow, acknowledging that his proposal is completely nonsensical and far beyond the boundaries of common sense. Yet, despite his shame, he refuses to back down from his decision. He recalls the moment he first entertained the idea of being a two-timer, foolishly believing he could keep both girls in the dark to save them from their supposed fate. At the time, it seemed like the only logical way out of his divine predicament. He had resolved to take on the burden of secrecy, thinking that as long as they never found out, he could protect their lives and their happiness. He was convinced that this was his duty as their soulmate. With a violent thwack, he slams his head down in self-disgust, berating himself for being such a monumental idiot. He realizes that a relationship built on secrets and lies would be an insult to the genuine affection they've shown him. He thinks back to the raw honesty in their eyes when they confessed their love, knowing better than anyone the immense courage it took for them to be so vulnerable. He can't bear the thought of betraying that trust with a hidden agenda. His expression hardens with a new, more honorable kind of resolve as he decides to throw away any thoughts of deception. He knows there are moral lines that should never be crossed, and lying to the ones he loves is definitely one of them. Tears of genuine passion and desperation stream down his face as he pours out his true feelings to the stunned girls. He admits that he loves them both far too much to ever choose between them, begging for a chance to make them both happy through total honesty. Rintaro begs both of them to go out with him, promising he'll never be disloyal and will make them the most loved girls in the world. Karain isn't buying it, calling him an idiot and refusing to be some side chick. Hikari just stares in total shock. To prove his sincerity, Rintaro pulls out 2 4-leaf clovers. The girls are stunned. They both know how impossible it is to find even one. The boy explains he spent the whole evening searching and even had to talk his way back on a school grounds to find them. Karain scoffs, calling him an idiot for believing in fairy tales, while Hikari notices he's covered in mud from the search. She accuses him of just putting on a performance to justify two-timing them. Rintaro's face falls. That wasn't what he was going for at all. Hikari laughs at Karain's failed attempt to look cool, which only makes the blonde girl more furious. Rintaro admits he just thought they'd appreciate a romantic gesture. He blushes, hoping that at the very least, it made him happy. The sheer sincerity hits them so hard they both erupt in a massive, comical nosebleeds. Wiping the blood, Karain pants and admits she accepts. Hikari agrees too, saying she'll give a polyamorous relationship a shot if it makes him happy. She explains that since she can't imagine loving anyone else, she's willing to learn how to share. Karain's brain is short-circuiting at the fact that they're actually doing this. She grabs his shirt and warns him that he'd better treat her right. She mutters that she never actually said she wouldn't go out with him. Rintaro declares that he'll make both of them the happiest girls alive. And so their preposterous school life begins, with 98 soulmates still out there somewhere. On his way to school, Rintaro's heart is racing because he finally has a girlfriend. Except there are 2 of them, and Karain is already yelling at him for talking to Powerpole. Hikari greets them both warmly, commenting on the nice weather. She immediately links arms with Rintaro and squeezes his hand. Rintaro internally panics over how soft and warm her hand feels. Hikari is smugly enjoying her lead, while Karain watches them with growing irritation. Karain suddenly grabs his other hand, her touch feeling like a literal jolt of electricity. She claims she's just doing it to zap him with static, but she doesn't let go. Rintaro notices Hikari has gone quiet and asks if she's alright. The pink-haired girl gets all sparkly and asks him to start calling her by her first name. Rintaro tries it out, calling her Hakari-san, which makes her quiver with delight. Karain snaps, demanding he use her first name too, even though she claims she wasn't talking to him. He says Karain, and she practically explodes from the blush. Both girls start shouting his name back at him in a state of pure bliss. The trio walks through the school hallways, drawing confused looks from other students as the girls argue. A student sprints past them in terror, begging for mercy from an approaching monster. It's the vice principal, who is infamous for being strict about students running in the halls. Worse, her punishment of choice is an aggressive French kiss that leaves students traumatized. They call her the supersonic spinster, and since she's a former athlete, nobody can outrun her. Rintaro mentions that he's never been kissed before, and neither have the girls. A realization hits Hakari and Karain. The first one to kiss him wins his first kiss ever. At lunch, as a stray cat sleeps nearby, the battle for the first kiss officially begins. Up on the school roof, Hakari notes that it's windy and completely deserted, making it the perfect spot. She offers Rintaro some home-cooked egg, giving him the full say treatment while Karain watches from the side. Karain won't be outdone and shoves a bag of cookies at him, claiming she just happened to bake some extra. Rintaro's face gets practically smashed by Karain's aggressive delivery, leaving him wondering why she's aiming for his eyeballs. Despite the rough handling, Rintaro is in absolute heaven, feeling like he's slipped into a parallel universe where life is actually good. For dessert, Hakari pulls out a box of Baki sticks, ready to keep the momentum going. Disaster strikes when they realize every single stick in the box is snapped, ruining Hakari's plan. She improvises, popping a broken piece in her mouth and starting the legendary Baki game right then and there. Rintaro's heart starts racing as Hakari's face gets closer and closer. She starts nibbling on the stick, and the game is officially in full swing. Karain panics, realizing that if she doesn't stop them now, her rival is going to snag Rintaro's first kiss. She lets out a massive sneeze, accidentally flicking a piece of snack right into Rintaro's eye. Again, as Rintaro wipes his eyes, Karain pivots, asking if he's coming down with a cold. She claims the best way to get over a cold is to pass it to someone else via mouth-to-mouth. She goes in for the transfer, but Hakari physically blocks her, pointing out they don't even know if he's sick yet. Hakari suggests a more accurate test, checking for a fever using her lips on his forehead. The two start arguing over their medical techniques, while Rintaro looks on, totally confused. Karain snaps, asking why they're both so obsessed with getting a kiss right now. Rintaro finally pieces it together and asks if they were actually trying to kiss him. Karain tries to play it cool, but her stuttering and blushing make it pretty obvious she's lying. Rintaro is genuinely moved that they go to such lengths just for a kiss from him. Hakari and Karain fall silent, realizing they still haven't figured out who gets to be first. They start bickering again, each accusing the other of trying to jump the line. Rintaro realizes this conflict is the real reason they were fighting before. He announces that he spent the entire night cooking up a special plan for just such an occasion. The girls are touched by his dedication, though they're a little worried he didn't get any sleep. He explains his goal, a first kiss that is completely fair and anonymous, so nobody feels left out. If nobody knows who went first, then as far as they're concerned, they both did. He pulls out his toolkit, dice, blindfolds, and music players to keep the senses blocked. He'll turn his back and put on noise-canceling earbuds to make sure he can't hear the moving. He's even picked a specific song to play on repeat at max volume to drown everything out. While he's distracted, the girls will throw dice to decide who stands on the right and who stands on the left. This way, their starting positions are decided purely by luck. Once they're ready, they'll send him a message through a messaging app to give the signal. He'll throw the dice himself and wait a random number of seconds before starting. He'll then kiss both of them in turn, with another dice roll deciding whether he starts from the right or left. Since they'll be blindfolded and listening to music too, they won't be able to tell who was kissed first. After the kisses, he'll go back to his spot and throw the dice again to wait for another random interval. Finally, they'll throw dice one last time to swap positions again before taking off their blindfolds. With all the swapping and waiting, the original order will be impossible to track. Hakari thinks the plan is brilliant, but Karain is worried someone might try to cheat. Rintaro assures them he has a specific solution for that problem as well. Rintaro's ultimate anti-cheating solution is simple, a pinky promise not to cheat. He believes nobody would ever break such a sacred vow. The girls are stunned by his sheer wholesomeness, but they quickly agree, feeling a bit bad for questioning him in the first place. They all swear on their lives to keep the promise, crossing their hearts and hoping for needles in their eyes if they fail. With the blindfolds on and music blasting, Hakari and Karain wait with pounding hearts, feeling like they're doing something almost illegal. Rintaro is also blindfolded, shuffling slowly toward where he thinks the girls are standing, trying not to trip. He's terrified of accidentally headbutting someone, so he reaches out blindly to find their shoulders first. He manages to find someone's shoulders, and he's absolutely certain it's Hakari, though the manga keeps his exact reasoning a secret for Karain's sake. Hakari is clearly enjoying the suspense, blushing and offering more than just a kiss if he's interested. Suddenly, Karain jolts and rips off her blindfold, demanding to know what just happened. Rintaro panics, realizing something went wrong. They're all blushing furiously, and Karain is fuming, convinced that the plan was flawed from the start. A stray cat watches from the sidelines as they prepare for a reset, stretching its legs as it observes the humans. From a cat's perspective, this blindfolded shuffling looks less like romance and more like some strange cult ritual. Rintaro tries again, reaching out blindly, but the cat has decided to wander right into the middle of the kissing zone. He accidentally touches the cat instead of girl, and the startled animal lets out a screech, swiping at everything in reach. Karain, still blindfolded, feels something nibbling, and assumes Rintaro has turned into a total creep, unleashing a barrage of punches. She beats him senseless, while Hikari just watches in shock, trying to figure out how things devolved so quickly. Rintaro is a mess, bleeding and bruised, but he's still determined to make the third time the charm despite the chaos. Another reset. It seems this eccentric kissing game is far beyond the abilities of these rookie sweethearts. They're all collapsed on the roof, exhausted. Rintaro laments that movies make kissing look so much easier than it actually is. Karain snaps, blaming the people involved for the failure. Hikari takes offense, and the bickering starts right back up. The two girls are back to shouting, "He's mine," at each other while a battered Rintaro tries to calm them down. Hikari demands Karain stop hurting her beloved, which only makes Karain angrier. The tension is reaching a breaking point. Rintaro bows low, blaming himself for everything. He feels like a useless boyfriend for making him fight like this. He can't stand seeing them miserable because of him, and he decides on a desperate course of action to end the conflict. Before the girls can react, Rintaro takes off at a full sprint, dashing through the school halls with a crazed look in his eyes. He shouts that he's going to find the vice principal, leaving Hikari and Karain completely bewildered as they chase after him. He finds her, a terrifying, muscular woman with sunglasses and an alarmingly long tongue. She's horrified that a student is running in the halls. The vice principal slams into the scene with a monster-like cackle, ready to give Rintaro a whipping of love for breaking the rules. She grabs Rintaro in a camel clutch, but Karain arrives and physically rips her away, calling her a freaky old crone. Hikari points out that while wrestling is against school rules, kissing your students is definitely against national law. Hikari bluffs, shouting that an auditor from the Board of Education is right around the corner and about to catch her. Terrified of losing her job, the vice principal flees, skittering away on all fours like some kind of giant, disturbing insect. As she disappears, she shouts about needing her salary to keep visiting host clubs. The girls can only watch in disgust. Hikari and Karain turn to Rintaro, asking why on earth he would do something so insanely dangerous and stupid. Rintaro explains that he loves them both so much he couldn't stand seeing them fight over his first kiss anymore. He was willing to throw away his first kiss and give it to the vice principal just to spare them the pain of the conflict. The girls are speechless. They realize that while they were being greedy, Rintaro was willing to sacrifice himself for their sake. Hikari and Karain look at each other, the tension between them finally starting to evaporate as they realize they were both being selfish. They admit that they'd both be jealous if he kissed the other, but they also truly care about each other's feelings. It's obvious that they both love Rintaro, and they both love being friends. They can't deny those feelings anymore. Rintaro is so moved by their honesty that he pulls them both into a tight, emotional hug. As they embrace, Rintaro announces that he has one final plan to settle the first kiss issue once and for all. The girls' simultaneous cry of disbelief echoes across the school grounds as Rintaro unveils his ultimate solution. He proposes a three-of-us-at-once kiss, complete with a helpful diagram showing exactly how they should position their faces for the group smooch. Rintaro admits it's a desperate, half-baked idea, but it's the only way he can think of to make sure nobody gets left out. Besides me, you'd also be kissing each other. This final realization sends Hikari and Karain into a state of total, blushing shock. Seeing their hesitation, Rintaro gets even more worked up. With tears streaming down his face, he shouts about how much he believes in the three of them. His ridiculous sincerity wins them over. They stand in a triangle, the air thick with tension and the smell of the evening air. They reach out and join hands, a silent pact formed in the middle of their circle. Each of them takes a final look at the others, Karain with her usual sharp-eyed blush, Hikari with her soft gaze, and Rintaro with pure, unadulterated devotion. They lean in. 3 hearts beat as one as they close the distance for their very first kiss. Smooch. The impact is so powerful, it creates a localized explosion of light. The narration notes that it's a sight so strange, it looks like a UFO summoning ritual. And remarkably, it works. A tiny flying saucer boops its way across the twilight sky, leaving the 3 of them to their hard-earned moment of love. Rintaro asks Hikari what they're even doing in the school library. Hikari gets all sparkly, admitting she wants to learn some new recipes to cook for him. Karain jumps in, shouting that it's a total coincidence, and she was just thinking about trying her hand at cooking too. When Rintaro asks if she's making something for him, she immediately gets defensive and tells him to shut up. The two girls start fighting over the same cookbook. Rintaro tries to play peacemaker, but they aren't listening. They both claim they're only doing it because he brought up, even though he clearly didn't. Rintaro decides to let them have at it while he looks for something for himself. He spots a tiny girl struggling to reach a book on the top shelf and steps in to help. As their hands touch, a massive bolt of lightning strikes between them. Rintaro realizes it. He just found his third soulmate. The girl is just as shocked as he is. He hands her the book, but she's still completely frozen. She starts flipping through the pages at high speed, looking for something. She points to a random line about a governor. Rintaro has no idea what's going on. He notices her librarian armband and realizes she actually works there. She keeps flipping through the book, her fingers flying over the text. She points to another sentence about the truth, leaving Rintaro even more confused. He asks if she's not allowed to talk, but she just points to more lines asking what he's looking for. It clicks for him. She's using the book to speak. He mimes that he's looking for a romantic comedy. She points to a line asking why he won't open his mouth. Rintaro's confused because he's the one talking. She quickly points to an apology and a line about someone finding it hard to talk to people. She signals that she'll go find something better for him. She turns to leave, but Rintaro stops her to officially ask for help. She gives a small nod. He tells her he loves romance novels, especially the ones with happy endings. Her eyes light up with pure excitement. She starts darting around the library like a little blue blur, grabbing books left and right. Rintaro watches her scurry around, amazed by how much effort she's putting in just for him. She comes back lugging a massive stack of books that's easily twice her size. She points to a few more lines, apologizing for being a nuisance and telling him to take whatever he likes. Rintaro is so touched by her dedication that he decides he's going to read every single one of them. But the law of the library hits him hard. It'll take a week to get a new library card, and he can't check anything out yet. Seeing his disappointment, the girl holds out a different book, her hands trembling. He notices there's no barcode. She's lending him her own personal copy. Rintaro is genuinely grateful and asks for her name. She shows him her student ID. Her name is Yoshimoto Shizuka, and they're actually in the same class. He introduces himself and thanks her again. Shizuka looks like she's about to float away from happiness. That night, Rintaro dives into Circlet Love Story, the tragic tale of Princess Io and her knight. He gets completely sucked into the story, cheering for the characters to beat the odds and find happiness. He stays up all night reading. Shizuka's sweet gesture is stuck in his head. He remembers the god's warning. If soulmates don't find love, they'll die. He leans back, realizing the stakes are way too high to mess this up. The next morning at school, he spots Shizuka sitting alone at her desk. He walks up to return her book, thanking her for such a great read. Shizuka's heart starts racing immediately. Shizuka nervously holds her personal copy of Circlet Love Story tight against her chest. She looks up at Rintaro, clearly surprised that he's already finished reading the entire thing. Rintaro is practically beaming, telling her he's dying to know what happens in the sequel. Nearby, Hikari and Karain are already bickering over some animal-shaped chicken nuggets, while a classmate watches in disbelief. Rintaro heads over to a vending machine to grab a drink for Shizuka as a small thank you. The two of them sit on a bench together, peacefully sipping their drinks. Rintaro comments on how great the book was, and Shizuka just gives him a shy little nod. She points to a line in her book about not shunning the person she's become. She looks at him with a soft, hopeful expression while he stays silent for a moment. He snaps out of it and asks if he can borrow the next volume, making her eyes go wide. He takes the next book, promising to bring it back as soon as he's done. Days go by, and every time they meet, Shizuka seems to be growing more attached to him. When they meet again 3 days later, Shizuka notices that Rintaro looks absolutely exhausted. He admits he hasn't been sleeping much lately because he's been working on a special project. Suddenly, Hikari appears out of nowhere and plants a big kiss right on his cheek. She laughs it off, claiming she was just trying to give him some of her energy. Karain isn't about to be left out, charging in with a headbutt that sends Rintaro reeling. Elsewhere, a group of girls is cornering Shizuka, mocking her for always using a book to communicate. Shizuka slumps against a pillar after they leave, feeling like an absolute freak. She sits alone in the library, staring at her book and feeling more isolated than ever. She's so lost in her thoughts that she doesn't even notice Rintaro walking up behind her. He gently calls out her name, asking when her library duty is finally over for the day. Shizuka immediately points to a line in her book, asking to hear his story. Rintaro sits down across from her, thanking her again for lending him those books. He asks if she has a smartphone, and when she nods, he tells her there's an app he wants her to install. He hands her an SD card, explaining how to copy the data over to her phone. Shizuka is shocked to find the entire first volume of her favorite book already loaded onto it. Rintaro explains that it's a text-to-speech app that will read aloud whatever part of the text she selects. She starts swiping through the text, her eyes widening as she realizes what this means. She can't believe that he actually went through and typed every single word from the book into his phone. He tells her that since they always had to look at a book to talk, they never really got to look at each other. With the app, he says they can finally have a real conversation while looking into each other's eyes. He knows it's not a perfect replacement for her own voice, but he hopes it'll help her feel less alone. He promises he'll never push her to talk if she's not ready, but he wants to make things easier for her. He playfully encourages her to give it a try and say something to him for the first time. Shizuka stares down at the screen, her finger hovering over the lines of text. A small, digital voice suddenly fills the quiet library, saying the words, "I love you." Rintaro is stunned into silence, watching as Shizuka continues to select more quotes. Tears start streaming down her face as she uses the app to apologize for being so strange. The voice continues, explaining that she only wanted to make her feelings known, even though she knows he already has other girlfriends. Rintaro reaches out, his expression softening as he realizes that his feelings for her have nothing to do with fate. He looks her straight in the eye and tells her that he loves her too, making her burst into tears of joy. Shizuka looks down, tears welling in her eyes as she speaks through the app about a love forbidden by fate. Rintaro imagines himself as a knight in shining armor, declaring his resolve to defy fate itself alongside Princess Shizuka. Back in reality, Shizuka buries her face in her hands, weeping openly as Rintaro holds her close to offer comfort. Behind them, Hikari and Karain watch the scene with wide eyes, completely blindsided by this development. Rintaro stands tall and tells them plainly that he wants the permission to make Shizuka his newest girlfriend. Karain and Hikari lose their minds, screaming about whether his brain has rotted out from the absurdity of the request. Rintaro remains dead serious, even suggesting he'll commit seppuku to atone for his greed, much to Karain's annoyance. Realizing they can't change his mind, the girls sighs they accept that their love triangle has officially become a rectangle. A dramatic title card appears, noting that Rintaro still has 97 soulmates left to find. Rintaro's phone screen shows he's already browsing for a ceremonial dagger on Amazon, just in case. Later, Rintaro gathers the three girls together, officially introducing Hikari and Karain to Shizuka. Shizuka uses her phone app to formally greet them, appearing so stiff and polite that Karain wonders if she's an android. Rintaro explains that he's even added the script for the next book and everyone's names into the app for her. Shizuka tries out the new names, adding an old-fashioned Dano honorific to Hikari and Karain as she thanks them. Rintaro starts gushing about Shizuka's adorable habit of wiggling her toes when she gets invested in something. He doesn't stop there, also pointing out the cute gestures Hikari and Karain make when they're thinking or flustered. The three girls stare at him, their faces flushing deep red as they realize how closely he's been watching them. Overwhelmed by his affection, the three of them tremble with joy, all thinking about how much he truly cares for them. Shizuka is completely frozen as Rintaro goes into way too much detail about how his other two girlfriends react when they kiss. Her eyes go wide as she processes the technical term for locking lips, wondering if he's actually done it before. Rintaro leans in and asks the big question. Does Shizuka want to try it too? Her heart starts racing so loud you can practically hear it. She quickly hides behind her phone, using her app to claim she's staying pure until marriage because it's ordained by God. Rintaro immediately backs off, telling her it's totally fine and they can just go at her own pace. He gives her a sincere smile, making it clear he won't push her into anything she's not ready for while the other girls finish their lunch. The group settles in for a peaceful rooftop lunch together, trying to bridge the gap between the original pair and the new addition. Peace doesn't last long as both girls try to shove food into Rintaro's mouth at the same time, making him remind them he's only got one face. While the main pair bickers over who gets to feed him, Shizuka just sits there quietly, looking a bit like an outsider. Rintaro realizes he needs a way to fix this, so he pulls an all-nighter studying psychology and social skills to find a solution. He figures that people usually put up a front when they're unfamiliar, and the only way to bond is to break through those walls. So he pulls out a deck of cards and suggests a game of Old Maid, but with a special penalty for losing to spice things up. The catch is that the loser has to get tickled by the winner, forcing an involuntary laugh out of them. And just like that, Operation Everyone Tickles Each Other, So We Become Friends is officially underway. The girls take this way more seriously than expected, getting into a high-stakes standoff before the first card is even drawn. Round 1 ends instantly, and Karain is absolutely devastated to find out she's the first one on the chopping block. Hikari moves in with a predatory grin, telling Karain to get ready for what's coming. She starts digging in, and Karain tries her best to act tough, claiming she doesn't feel a thing. But the fingers keep moving, and Karain's resolve starts to crumble as she lets out a few strange noises. She eventually loses it completely, squirming on the floor while Rintaro starts feeling like he's witnessing a crime. Hikari loses the next round and immediately starts taking off her jacket, asking Rintaro to be gentle with her. Karain has to physically stop her from stripping before Rintaro finally gets to work on her instead. Hikari's reaction is way more intense than anyone expected, and she seems to be enjoying the tickling a bit too much. She ends up with a dazed, blissed-out expression on her face that has Karain wondering what kind of drug she's on. Once it's over, Hikari is left gasping for air, claiming she's just extremely ticklish as she tries to regain her composure. Then she drops a bombshell, admitting she almost leaked from the excitement, leaving the other two completely speechless. Round 3 comes around, and this time Shizuka is the one who has to face the music. Rintaro is actually looking forward to this one, thinking about how adorable it'll be to hear the tiny librarian finally laugh. He starts the tickle attack, but Shizuka remains as silent as ever, even as she swarms around. Instead of laughing, she just lets her phone do the talking, flashing a quote about giving a hearty laugh while smiling peacefully. The girls realize Rintaro is the only one who hasn't lost a round yet, which feels a bit unfair to them. They lock eyes and decide on a new mission. They're going to win the next round just so they can tickle him back. The tension hits an all-time high as the cards fly, and Rintaro finally takes a loss, realizing he's in big trouble. All 3 girls loom over him like a pack of hungry wolves, ready to claim their prize. Rintaro accepts his fate and tells Shizuka to come at him first. She just gives a polite, as you will, through her phone. While the other 2 charge in like wild animals, Shizuka hesitates, her eyes darting around as she tries to figure out what to do. Hikari and Karain start poking and prodding him everywhere, but Shizuka just gives him a few polite little taps. She keeps checking her phone app to see if her weak pokes are actually doing anything while Rintaro tries to hold back his own laughter. The original duo isn't holding back at all, using the game as a perfect excuse to get a feel for forbidden places. Rintaro is having a blast, and Hikari realizes that Shizuka's pure, innocent vibe is actually her greatest weapon. She compares her own flirty poser act to Shizuka's small fluff, energy, and realizes she's totally outclassed in the cuteness department. Hikari stares off into the distance, accepting that the shy librarian is a bigger threat to her relationship than she ever imagined. The group watches as Rintaro is completely overwhelmed by the tickling, though he can't stop laughing. Rintaro suddenly realizes he's reached his limit and makes a break for the bathroom, leaving the girls behind. A heavy silence falls over the rooftop as the 3 girls are left alone for the first time. Karain breaks the ice, demanding to know why Shizuka is still acting so distant and scared of them. The school building stands quiet as the confrontation begins to heat up between the soulmates. Shizuka is trembling, unsure of how to respond to Karain's aggressive questioning. Karain gets right in her face, calling her out for holding back during the game and treating them like strangers. Shizuka flinches, hiding behind her phone while trying to process the intense energy coming from the blonde girl. Karain keeps pressing, telling her that acting oblivious only makes her more frustrated. Shizuka finally starts typing into her app, explaining that she's just a novice who needs to show them respect as Rintaro's original lovers. Karain isn't having it, asserting that Shizuka is officially one of Rintaro's girlfriends now, not just some random side girl. She gets flustered when Hikari points out that Karain would rather pick a fight than just admit how she truly feels. Karain keeps shouting at her to lash out and strike back instead of just apologizing for everything. Shizuka stands there, petrified with fear as she tries to find the words to explain her insecurities. Karain starts tearing up, suddenly realizing that her tough love might actually just be coming off as scary. Shizuka looks at both of them and begins a long, sincere explanation of how beautiful and confident she thinks they are. She admits that she doesn't feel like they're equal, fearing she'll never live up to the example they set for Rintaro. Both Hikari and Karain are hit with a wave of emotion, finding Shizuka's honesty absolutely adorable. Shizuka continues, calling herself ordinary and plain, and feeling small like a child in their company. The girls immediately start comforting her, with Karain even apologizing for being so annoying and loud. Hikari tells her she has nothing to worry about, promising that Rintaro has more love to give than they could ever imagine. Karain reaffirms that Shizuka shouldn't hide herself, and that she's welcome to share whatever is on her mind. They even suggest she start calling them by their first names since they're all in this relationship together. Rintaro watches from the doorway, realizing his plan to bring them together worked out even better than he hoped. The group continues their light-hearted interaction, though Karain is still acting a bit grumpy about the whole situation. Rintaro starts thinking about why he organized the game in the first place, questioning his own methods for a second. He realizes that if he lets them keep hiding their real feelings, they'll never truly get closer to each other. He decides he needs the courage to let them express themselves, even if it means things get a little chaotic. Hikari ends up mediating between the two, making sure Shizuka doesn't have to face all of Karain's blunt energy alone. Rinaro is moved to tears by how good the girls are, feeling like they're far too good for someone like him. Karain insists that Shizuka's previous wimpy pokes didn't count, and that she needs to tickle Rintaro properly this time. Shizuka clenches her fists, finally finding the resolve to show everyone how she really feels. She looks Rintaro straight in the eye and uses her app to make a bold request. She wishes to be kissed. Everyone is completely stunned by her sudden directness, their mouths hanging open in shock. Shizuka admits that her earlier claim about wanting to stay pure until marriage was just a lie to hide her shyness. Rintaro gives her a warm, blushing smile, telling her how glad he is to hear her true feelings. Shizuka is overwhelmed with embarrassment, hiding her face behind her phone while her whole body shivers. She closes her eyes and prepares herself, leaning in with her heart racing as she waits for the moment. Rintaro starts gently patting her head, telling her she's just way too cute for him to handle. Shizuka snuggles into his hand, a small, peaceful smile appearing on her face as she enjoys the affection. He continues to stroke her hair, whispering her name as the atmosphere becomes incredibly soft and intimate. He leans down and finally connects with her for a tender, romantic kiss that officially welcomes her into the group. Shizuka pulls away from the kiss, her face a bright shade of crimson as she processes what just happened. She looks completely dazed, her eyes wide and her body swaying as she tries to remain upright. Karain and Hikari watch with intense, beating hearts, their own faces flushed with secondary embarrassment. Hikari, always the one to seize the moment, teases Karain about how Shizuka managed to be more honest with her feelings than she was. Karain immediately gets defensive, shouting that she's not hiding anything at all. Hikari then turns her attention back to Rintaro, her expression softening and becoming incredibly sweet. She asks him if she can have a kiss as well, her fingers fidgeting with anticipation. Rintaro, though still blushing, agrees without hesitation. Hikari strikes a cute, deliberate pose, leaning in close to Rintaro. She looks up at him with soulful eyes, asking if he thinks she's as adorable as Shizuka. Her heart is pounding visibly in the small panels beside her. Rintaro's reaction is explosive. He yells out that of course she is, his face turning even redder as he's hit by the sheer force of her charm. He tells her that all three of them, Hikari, Karain, and Shizuka, are the cutest and greatest girls in the entire world. Hikari can't help but giggle, her initial jealousy completely melting away. She gives him a playful, slightly mischievous look, admitting that she only asked because she knew he would give her such a wonderful answer. She's clearly enjoying the attention and his sincere devotion. She closes her eyes, her lashes trembling slightly as she prepares herself for the kiss she's been waiting for. Rintaro leans in, and they share a deep, romantic kiss under the clear afternoon sky. It's a moment of pure connection between the two of them. With Hikari and Shizuka taken care of, Rintaro turns his gaze toward Karain, who is standing off to the side, looking completely flustered. She tries to act tough, saying she doesn't really care about the kissing game, but her body language tells a completely different story. Rintaro doesn't let her play it off. He pulls her into a sudden, firm hug and whispers that she's incredibly adorable. The compliment hits Karain like a physical force, her face practically exploding in a blush as she struggles to process the sudden intimacy. Rintaro laughs, telling her she's super-duper cute when she's this flustered. Karain's embarrassment turns into a classic Sunder outburst, as she begins a flurry of light punches against the chest, calling him a dummy over and over again. Rintaro takes the attacks with a smile, acknowledging that they actually kind of hurt, but he doesn't let go. He reaffirms that despite her protests, he really does want to kiss her. Karain's anger subsides into a quiet, shy acceptance. She looks down, her voice small as she finally admits that she wants to kiss him too. She's still trembling, her eyes wide as she lets her guard down for just a moment. Rintaro leans down and kisses Karain, a gentle and sincere gesture that acknowledges her hidden soft side. The rooftop is finally quiet as all three girls have shared a moment of intimacy with their shared boyfriend. Rintaro stands there, covering his face with his hand as the weight of his situation sinks in. He's overwhelmed by the sheer luck of having three such amazing and beautiful girlfriends who are willing to share their love. Shizuka, Hikari, and Karain stand behind him, all looking dazed but happy. The three girls stand together on a rooftop, looking out over the school. Shizuka expresses her gratitude to the other two, and they all share a quiet moment of newfound friendship and solidarity. The chapter ends with a vibrant shot of all three girls smiling brightly. Karain maintains her tough exterior, Hikari is as bubbly as ever, and Shizuka holds up her phone to express her agreement. They are a unique and diverse parade of personalities, but they're all united in their love for Rintaro. Rintaro walks with his girlfriends as Karain complains about the exam results. He realizes he left his phone back in the classroom and has to run back to get it. The girls are already stressing about their memories being more precious than life itself. Back in the classroom, Rintaro finds a lone girl sitting by the window and asks if she's going to check the results. The girl calmly explains that checking is a waste of time since she already knows she's number one. When their eyes lock, that familiar soulmate shock hits Rintaro like a truck. He tries to invite her to look together, but she just repeats that it's pointless. Rintaro is a proud boyfriend, patting everyone's heads after seeing they all placed reasonably well. He checks the very top of the list and sees the name Nano Yaei with a perfect score of 700. The girls discuss the rumors about Nano, saying she's less a person and more like a cold, efficient robot. During the biology lab, Rintaro finds himself paired up with the genius herself. He tells himself to focus and not just stare. He can't help but notice how elegant she is compared to the chaotic energy of his other girlfriends. Instead of using the equipment, Nano is just copying diagrams directly from the textbook. Rintaro mentions that the microscope is right there, but she dismisses it as inefficient. She claims that reproducing results that are already known is a total waste of her time. With the teacher breathing down their necks, Rintaro insists they follow the proper procedure for the lab. He fumbles with the lens, trying to focus on anything while Nano just watches him struggle. Rintaro is so preoccupied with her inner robot that he slips and cuts his finger on a razor. Nano stares at the wound and decides on a more efficient way to handle the situation. Without warning, she takes his hand and licks the cut. Rintaro is losing his mind, but Nano clinically explains that saliva is a natural disinfectant and a bandage is a waste of resources. As she continues, Rintaro gets lost in the details of her face, noticing how long her lashes are and how smooth her skin looks. He's a blushing mess, wondering if this is even real because of how soft her lips and tongue feel. The other girls are having their own mini meltdown over the lab results nearby. After class, Rintaro thanks her for the help, though he's still reeling from the encounter. Nano says his absence just made packing up faster. Rintaro tries to be nice and offers to buy her a soda. She rejects it immediately, calling sugary drinks inefficient for hydration. Rintaro wonders if she lives her whole life like this. She bluntly states that having a fun chat is meaningless to her. She's never had a hobby or a holiday because fun doesn't produce anything of value like better grades. Rintaro tries to argue that fun is important, but she dismisses it as a delusion if it can't be mathematically defined. She tells him the debate is a waste of time and walks away, leaving him questioning the soulmate connection. Back at home, Nano is alone in her room, focused on her studies as usual. But she can't focus because Rintaro's face keeps flashing in her mind. She tries to push the distracting thoughts away. Her heart starts racing and she gets flustered, snapping her pen in half in the frustration. She thinks back to what she did in the lab and can't believe she acted so irrationally. She tries to logically analyze why she sought his approval, but her brain keeps screaming that it's all illogical. To restore her rationality, she decides to go back to the most objective thing she knows. She starts typing out the digits of pi at a frantic pace, trying to drown out her feelings. Even after all that, she's still out of breath, and the feeling won't leave. She realizes the situation needs a resolution. The next day, she corners Rintaro and admits she's felt affection for him and wants to date. Rintaro is thrilled and immediately says he likes her too and wants to go out. Then, Nano bows and says she must refuse him, leaving him completely baffled. Nano insists that while a mutual confession has occurred, ending the infatuation now is the most efficient move. She explains that she only came there to put a stop to these irrational feelings. Rintaro is floored, arguing that they both like each other, so there's no reason to quit. But Nano sees romance as nothing more than a biological path to marriage and offspring, both of which she has no interest in right now. She looks him in the eye and tells him flat out that she will never go out with him. Rintaro isn't backing down easily, mentioning how he's already survived 100 rejections. He declares that trying is never meaningless, even if the outcome isn't guaranteed. The girls nearby can overhear the drama, with Karain pretending she doesn't care even though she's clearly listening. Rintaro doubles down, stating that the effort itself has value. Nano dismisses his passion as irrelevant to her goals, but she doesn't just walk away. He realizes she doesn't actually want him to leave her alone, otherwise she would have left already. So he proposes a compromise, one single day together to get some closure. A few days later, the date is actually happening, and Nano is still looking as clinical as ever. Rintaro is beyond hyped, realizing this is officially his first real date ever. He's practically in tears seeing her in casual clothes, calling it a holy sight. They start at the carousel, where Nano immediately questions the efficiency of an equestrian simulator. Rintaro brings an instant camera along, but Nano labels it a flawed device for not keeping digital backups. He ignores her logic and tells her to say cheese, though she doesn't see the point of the word. Inside the haunted house, Nano remains completely unfazed, reminding him that ghosts aren't real. She points out the actors are just humans in rubber masks, which kind of kills the mood for Rintaro. Rintaro tries to explain that being startled is a normal reaction, but she suggests renaming it a human house. Next up are the teacups, which she views as absolute lunacy. She describes it as a brainwashing machine that uses rotational stimuli to trick people into thinking they're being entertained. Then there's the giant maze, where she tries to survey the layout from above to find the most efficient solution. She scowls at dead end, calling the whole concept a waste of her time. She claims that if they were autonomous cars, they'd never make such illogical errors in life or the maze. For the grand finale, they head to the Ferris wheel, but Nano starts looking a little less confident. Rintaro realizes she's actually afraid of heights, though she tries to frame it as a logical survival instinct. She's trembling as the car goes up, so Rintaro asks if he should sit right next to her. She gives a tiny nod, and he creeps over, apologizing for the movement of the car. Seeing her shiver, Rintaro's protective side kicks in. He reaches out and squeezes her hand, hoping to provide some comfort as they reach the top. As the park prepares to close, they sit down to look over the photos they took. Rintaro points out that she looks happy in some of them, despite her claims of being emotionless. He asks what she really thought of the day, hoping for a breakthrough. She admits that she did enjoy it, even if it defied her expectations. But then she reverts to her old self, calling it a meaningless day where nothing of value was truly attained. Nano leads with a clinical apology, treating their entire day together like a set of failed data points. Rintaro doesn't let the cold shoulder get to him, telling her it's fine and that everyone sees things their own way. She doubles down on a logic, claiming the day was meaningless and that they should just erase everything that happened. Surprisingly, Rintaro doesn't argue. He just pulls out a lighter, ready to help her burn the proof of their date. As he holds the photos over the flame, Nano watches stoically, calling the pictures flawed because they can't be backed up. She looks back on their day, the moments they shared and the fun they had, trying to convince herself none of it mattered. But as the photos start to drop, she finds herself suddenly unable to catch her breath, her logical shell finally cracking. Rintaro sees right through the act. He knows she isn't bored, she's actually terrified of losing the bond they just formed. He tells her straight up that she found something today that can't be measured by score or put into words. It doesn't matter if the day wasn't useful. The memories are something she finally owns for herself. Nano is left speechless, her eyes welling up as her logic loses its battle against her heart. She completely breaks down, admitting she didn't want their time to end like this, but was too scared to face it. Rintaro comforts her while she cries, explaining that the time they spent having fun is what actually matters most. She manages to pull herself together, thanking him for the handkerchief, but insisting she'll disinfect it before returning it. It reminds him of the time she disinfected his cut finger with her tongue back in the biology lab. Nano looks at him with total sincerity, her cold, logical mask completely gone for the first time. She finally confesses she's in love and asks if she can stay by his side from now on. She wants to share more of those meaningless moments as long as she gets to spend them with him. Rintaro doesn't hesitate for a second, telling her he loves her too and wants more time together. He reaches out his hand, inviting her into his crazy, growing family. Their fingers interlock, and for a moment, the rest of the world just stops. Nano doesn't waste any time. She leans in and seals the deal with a kiss that catches Rintaro completely off guard. She claims the sudden kiss was just for efficiency, leaving Rintaro literal steam coming off his head from the shock. At the park, she's still calling the costumed mascots humans, while Rintaro tries to keep the magic alive for the kids nearby. Soon enough, she's standing in front of the other girls at school, ready to be officially introduced. Rintaro nervously asks the other three for permission to add a fourth girlfriend, and surprisingly, they're mostly okay with it. He's so moved he swears to disembowel himself if he fails them, but Nano logically points out that poison would be more efficient. Hikari isn't about to be left behind, though, immediately pouting because Nano and Rintaro already went on a date without her. Shizuka and the others look on as the rivalry between the girls starts to brew. Hikari pulls out her phone with a smug grin, showing off a huge pool she wants to visit. It was her plan all along. Cut to the girls shopping for the trip. Nano is worried none of her swimsuits are date-worthy enough for Rintaro. Karain is having a total meltdown at the store, blushing like crazy over the cuter options she's finding. She tries to convince herself she looks stupid in something frilly, but she can't stop looking at them. Deep down, she's just wondering if Rintaro would actually like seeing her in something like that for once. Finally, the big day arrives, and Rintaro is hyped to see the massive crowds at the new water park. The girls are ready too, and the view is definitely enough to put the poor guy in trance. Nano and the others step out in their new swimsuits, each one looking better than the last. It's too much for Rintaro. His soul basically leaves his body from the sheer impact of his four beautiful girlfriends. He managed to pull himself together to praise Shizuka for her modest choice, calling her a saint of virtue. But then Karain shows up hiding under a giant hoodie, asking everyone why they're staring at her. She claims she's just cold and tells the rest of them to go ahead and have fun poolside without her. She starts shoving Rintaro and the girls toward the water, acting tough to hide how embarrassed she really is. Karain and Nano are relaxing on the lounge chairs, and Nano is busy explaining the logical benefits of getting some vitamin D from the sun. Karain is in a total mood, though, kicking a beach ball away and screaming at anyone who gets within striking distance to get lost. Shizuka is floating nearby in her ring, using her phone app to admit that she's definitely ill-equipped for any kind of water warfare today. Karain gives the little one a comforting pat on the head, while Rintaro and Nano watch the peaceful scene unfold. They finally hit the water, and Rintaro is blown away by the size of the whirlpool. It's a massive 400 meters long. Shizuka gets caught in the spinning current and starts whirling around, while Nano warns everyone not to fight against the flow. The current is so fast it ends up shoving Hikari right into Rintaro, and things get a little too crowded for comfort. Rintaro has to wonder if she's doing this on purpose, especially since she seems to be enjoying the pushing a bit too much. He tries to stay decent, but he's basically being crushed between his two very enthusiastic girlfriends. Nano isn't about to be left out either, pressing herself against him and making Rintaro's face turn bright red. She claims it's just the most efficient way to make him appreciate her feminine appeal, while Karain screams at them from the sidelines. It quickly turns into a full-on competition over whose assets are firmer or softer, leaving Rintaro completely overwhelmed. The two of them start arguing over size and shape, completely ignoring the fact that their boyfriend is about to explode from embarrassment. The sensory overload is finally too much. Rintaro's soul basically leaves his body, and the girls realize he's passed out in the pool. Nano checks his vitals and delivers the grim news. His pulse is faint, and he's officially stopped breathing. Hikari immediately panics and decides the only way to save him is through some high-stakes mouth-to-mouth. She's about to lean in when Nano slaps her out of the way, insisting that she's the one who should handle the rescue. Nano leans down to deliver the life-saving kiss, looking as serious as if she were performing an actual surgery. But Hikari isn't backing down, panicking that she's the only one who can truly bring him back to life this time around. She leans back in, determined to be the one who gets to save her boyfriend. Meanwhile, poor Shizuka has been swept away by the current and has absolutely no idea where she's ended up. She tries to swim back to the group, but the whirlpool is just too strong for her to make any real progress. It finally sinks in for the poor girl. She's effectively lost at sea in the middle of a theme park. She finds herself drifting in a quiet corner of the pool, trembling and desperately using her phone to ask for aid. She floats past a crowd of people, her phone's automated voice repeatedly calling out for help while everyone else just chatters away. She starts spinning out of control again, clutching her phone and wishing someone would notice she's in trouble. Eventually, the current dumps her onto a tiny artificial island right in the middle of the whirlpool area. Shizuka is officially a castaway now, stranded on her little patch of land while the rest of the world goes on around her. Back with the others, Hikari and Nano are still blushing and arguing over who gets to resuscitate Rintaro. They're both so flustered that they can't even manage to give him mouth-to-mouth, no matter how hard they try to force it. Nano logically concludes they need to find a professional male staff member to take over the resuscitation instead. But before they can move, a group of delinquents shows up and starts harassing Hikari, trying to get her to hang out with them. One of the guys gets way too bold and reaches out to Hikari, making some really gross comments about her body. He's about to put his hands on her when a hand suddenly snatches his arm right out of the air. It's Karain, and she is absolutely fuming that these guys think they can just touch her friends. She shuts the guy up with a massive punch to the face, while Nano calmly suggests aiming for the eyes to be more efficient. Nano's cold stare is enough to make anyone back off, but the guys are just getting more angry. It's a total disaster. Shizuka is a castaway, Karain is still shivering in her hoodie, and Rintaro is basically a cool dead body on the floor.